This is a Fox News alert. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our FoxNews.com Super Tuesday digital special. I'm Melissa Francis, along with Kennedy and Todd Starnes, Meghan McCain, and Jesse Waters. Tonight, the second biggest primary showdown of 2016, Super Tuesday. Voters have been pouring into polling sites across the country, casting their votes. Candidates in both parties are vying for a delegate bonanza today. 691 on the Democratic side, 367 for the Republicans. Here's what we can tell you so far. It is 8 o'clock on the East Coast, which means polls have now closed in 3 more states, including the crucial state of Florida, where Fox News projects that Donald Trump will easily beat home state Senator Marco Rubio in Florida's Republican presidential primary. This is a potentially campaign-ending blow to Rubio. On the Democratic side, Fox can now project that Hillary Clinton will easily defeat Bernie Sanders in the Sunshine State, according to exit polls and early vote returns. So now the big question, the state where Marco Rubio's campaign really should have gotten off the ground. Instead, it seems like, where does he go from here? Kennedy.
He goes home. I mean, he's in Florida.
He's in home. He could just stay there.
It's,
no plane ticket necessary.
No, he doesn't even need to borrow any of Ben Carson's fresh clothes. He can literally just drive to his house and weep and think. And that's all he's going to be able to do for the next several years, is try and figure out what went so horribly wrong with a campaign that had so much promise, so much money, so much backing from the establishment, including their checks and goodwill. Yet it all seemed to fall apart with those humorous attacks against Donald Trump.
Yeah. Todd, what do you think?
Well, look, 88% of the folks that we talked to on Twitter, we had a poll going this afternoon. They say he's got to drop out now. There's nothing else for him to do. He was telling Fox News earlier today that he was going to Utah. I'm not sure. Why do you go to Utah? What's in Utah? Do they have like a theme park? I don't know.
Oh, no, the snow's very good this year. You're absolutely right.
But again, I think it's really, this is a horrible, horrible thing that has happened to Marco Rubio here. I mean, what does he do now? I mean, his own state has rejected him overwhelmingly in favor of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I know about nights like tonight, he's probably going to be drinking, as is his staff. I think going on to Utah and Arizona looks delusional. At a certain point, we really have to start weaning this out. Sorry, everyone, there's only going to be one winner. I'm not a Donald Trump supporter, but at a certain point, if he wins Florida and Ohio tonight, we got to face the music. And I just think sort of looking like a sore loser and like there's some delusion in your brain that you can make this happen looks kind of pathetic.
So, Jesse, when you hear someone say, I mean, we're all reacting to earlier today when Marco Rubio's, when he asked the question, are you going to quit if you don't win Florida, he would say, I'm going to win Florida. And then today he switched the answer to, I'm going to Utah no matter what. When he says that he's trying to put on a brave face, he really means it. He's been drinking right before the interview. Like, what is behind that comment in your comical mind?
I mean, he's got to have a big appetite because he's going to eat a lot of his words. Tonight, he said he was going to win Florida, and he lost big. This guy's he's like a cat. He's got 9 lives. He loses every single night, and he keeps bouncing back. You know, he'll probably drop out tonight, and the media will be like, oh, great night for Rubio. Rubio still hanging in. You know, the guy's got a nice brand, but he destroyed it with the small hands cracks. And now he just needs to salvage some respectability and maybe hang on until 2020, because if Hillary wins, he has the shot to say, you know, I told you Trump was a psychopath, and now I'm going to save the party.
All right, but my thing is, I'm sitting here looking at this, and Megan, maybe you know the answer to this. What is the psychology behind it? What is it that disallows these people to let go? Because if he does let go tonight, I mean, he could get out there. All eyes are watching tonight, especially our commercial-free coverage here. But it's really the perfect opportunity for him to put a button on his campaign and his philosophy, and I think this is the last chance he's got. But if he Ben Carson's it and says, no, we're actually moving forward, it's like, with what? With whom? Why? What do you say to that?
I think a lot of politicians are very delusional, and I think you have to be a little crazy in order to run for president. I say
Except
that
your
with
dad.
Except my
Except your
father, he was
father.
complete. Well, I just think you have to have a level that you think you're the person who's going to change the world, and I have the utmost respect for everyone who does it. But at this point, he's probably surrounded by, you have these core group of people that are around you that are like, you're brilliant, you're the savior, you're the person that's going to get it. And if you can't see the forest for the trees, which I will say in my family, it was my immediate family that was like, we're not going to win these things. Like, you got it. We got to save dignity for our entire family. And if people like Ben Carson Madison, I think, is a great example, totally imploded his career. He should have gotten out when he could have, and if Marco Rubio stays in, he is not going to be able to be the governor of Florida.
Let's go to Fox News chief political correspondent Carl Cameron. He is live in Palm Beach, Florida, where he is following Donald Trump's campaign. I imagine the mood there, campaign Carl, is pretty jubilant.
Well, the crowd's just now beginning to filter in, and they're aware that Trump has won Florida. In fact, they were pretty confident of it for quite some time. And Jesse, you pretty much nailed it. What plagued Marco Rubio more than anything was not winning enough. In fact, losing more than he won. And that, plus the fact that he had millions and millions and millions of attack ads run against him, including by the Democrats, kept him sort of limping. And ultimately, as the campaign looks at it, they're not stupid. They know how to read the polls. They anticipated this possibility coming. And Rubio, in the last 2 weeks, really tried to go more positive. He admitted that his trading of personal insults with Donald Trump didn't work for him. It undermined his aspirational and sort of optimistic message. And the consolation prize for Rubio is precisely what you've just said. The Rubio camp and his supporters believe the Republicans need to bring in more Latinos, more minorities, more women, more younger voters, and he can do that. And so Marco 2020. And historically, the country, if they were to have a Hillary Clinton presidency, that would be 3 Democratic terms in a row. And the hunger for Republican presidency after 3 terms would be a pretty big appetite. And they think that his aspirational and positive message can come back maybe in 4 years or down the road. Republicans recognize, Marco Rubio recognized that the electorate was way more angry than his message, and it just didn't resonate at the ballot box. They may like it in theory, they may like it in principle, but when it comes to the practical rubber meets the road ballot box, their economy, their sense of the international state of affairs, they wanted somebody who was ready to break a little furniture, and that was Donald Trump far more than Marco.
Although all the furniture behind you there, Carl, looks very intact. What are you, now you've been following the man on the trail. What do you expect to hear from Donald Trump tonight? I mean, will we hear the new
Victory.
Trump? Yeah.
Oh, listen, he'll give you a little bit of the new Trump. He'll give you a little bit of the old Trump. One of the things that he has been just a marvel at as the ability to sort of blurt out something and then moderate it, or start moderate and then start blurting things out. He's a Republican populist who's tapped into new voters. He's tapped into crossover Democrats and independents, and he's done that by recognizing the frustration of the last 7.5 years of the Obama administration. And if you look at the history of presidential politics after a 2-termer or when a 1-term president gets beat, more often than not, the candidate and the party that wins is the one who represents the most opposite antithesis. Bill Clinton got into trouble with some of his moral stuff, and George W. promised to restore the integrity and dignity of the White House. George W. got in trouble with the Iraq War, and Barack Obama promised to get people out of that. Barack Obama didn't really deliver on the hope and change optimism in terms of real productive economy and world stability. So Donald Trump is saying he's going to come and do something totally different. We have a real history of sort of yin and yang. Got to correct the failures of the last president with the apparent strengths of the next aspirant.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Carl. And it's Kennedy here. I think you could make the case that politics in the modern era is just a reaction to itself. Is Donald Trump going to hold a press conference again tonight?
Well, you'll see in the room fill up here. I had to actually count it. There's 36 rows of chairs between the stage where he will stand and the 2 rows where he's put the press at the back of the room. So we'll shout questions at him, but right now there isn't a wireless mic. I don't want to get too technical for the folks on the web show here, but if there's no wireless mic to the PA, he's probably not even going to hear us.
One word, megaphone, Carl. Use your megaphone. It's in the truck.
Tell you what, the biggest megaphone in this business belongs to the guy who's going to stand at that podium.
That's right.
Yeah. And Carl, we can't even see the alligators and snapping turtles that they put in the moat right at your feet either. So there you go. Anyway, have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
So guys, I mean, he agreed with you. You must be feeling all puffed up and fancy about
Carl's
that.
a very smart man.
Yeah.
Of course, he agrees with me.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I think Rubio, if you did an autopsy of Rubio, The Gang of Eight amnesty stuff destroyed him.
That doomed his
That
campaign.
was really the anchor
Yeah.
around his neck that weighed him down the whole time. He came up strong. He kind of nailed Jeb in a few debates and really smoked his mentor. The expectations game, he really managed to a certain point. Hey, third is number one, second is number one. And then it became a joke when he couldn't deliver. Christie destroyed him during that one debate. And the little Marco tag, I think, kind of hurt him because he does look little and he is young. And when he went dirty, he tarnished his brand, and that was it for little Marco.
Okay, but then, to your point about Chris Christie, it was when Chris Christie went negative that his campaign imploded. And although he did significant damage to Marco Rubio in that New Hampshire debate, it was still Christie's campaign that ended. And
They called him
Christie-
a suicide bomber. You know, you take someone out, but you blow
Well,
yourself up.
but Rubio doesn't have that kind of self-awareness. Even though his campaign is imploding, he still, if he doesn't extricate himself from the race tonight, he does not have the IQ or the EQ to be a national
And
politician.
nobody
Wait, so let me ask about that, though. Can he recover in 4 years, in 8 years? Can he come back? Because we've seen it happen to candidates that you were like, go away, I can't take you any longer.
Yeah.
And then 4 years, you
Like
kind of
which ones,
forget how
Melissa?
much,
Yeah.
well, no, I'm not even. Todd Starnes, what do you think?
Yes, I think maybe he sticks around in Florida, runs for governor. But the problem here is we didn't know which Marco we were voting for. Was it the altar boy Marco, or was it Mean Girls Marco, who was out there, you know, doing the man hands thing? So I think when you analyze this, I think they're going to have to go back and say, look, Marco, you've got to figure out who you are. He was flawed from day one with that Gang of Eight.
Right.
Again, it raised questions. Who is this guy? And if he would have come out day one and said, look, I screwed up with the Gang of Eight. Here's what I've learned. Here's where I stand now. I think everybody would have forgiven him, and I think he would still be in this race.
But he tried to have it both ways,
But
didn't
he certainly did. And
Megan,
it
what
did
do you
not
think?
work.
Can he recover? Can he come back? What should he do now?
I mean, they say unless you're under indictment or found with a dead boy or a live woman, whatever, live boy, whatever it is, or somebody dead, that you can run again. I think there's so many lifetimes in American politics. I think do it, but I will say do it the right way.
Let's listen in.
Donald Trump on his victory, a big victory in Florida. No, guys, we live in a republic, and our voters make these decisions, and we respect that very much. And it was a big win. And I want to begin by thanking all of you here today. And I want you to know I am the beneficiary of the best group of supporters, the hardest working people I've ever been associated with. And I'm so grateful to you guys. Thank you. And not just here in Florida. Not just here in Florida, but around the country. I love you too. I want you to know that you worked as hard, not just here, but all over the country. I want to talk to people in Iowa and in New Hampshire and in South Carolina and in the great state of Minnesota where I won, and in the territory of Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. All over. We had a great team. We have a great team, and I'm so grateful for all the help that you guys have given us. I just want you to know there's nothing more you could have done. You worked as hard as anyone worked. I want you to know we worked as hard as we ever could. But, well, America's in the middle of a real political storm, a real tsunami, and we should have seen this coming. Look, people are angry and people are very frustrated. It really began back in 2007, 2008, with this horrifying downturn. Don't worry, you won't get beat up at our event. People are very frustrated about the direction of our country. Thank you. Thank you. People are frustrated. In 2007 and 2008, there was a horrible downturn in our economy. And these changes to our economy that are happening are disrupting people's lives. And people are very upset about it. And they're told that, people are angry, they're frustrated, they're being left behind by this economy. And then they're told, look, if you're against illegal immigration, that makes you a bigot. And if you see jobs and businesses leaving to other countries, you have no right to be frustrated. They see America involved in the world and Americans spending money and losing their lives. And they see that there's very little gratitude for all the sacrifice America makes. And quite frankly, there's millions of people in this country that are tired of being looked down upon, tired of being told by these self-proclaimed elitists that they don't know what they're talking about and they need to instead listen to the so-called smart people. And I know all these issues firsthand. I've lived paycheck to paycheck. I grew up paycheck to paycheck. I know what it's like to have to figure out how to find the money to fix the air conditioner that broke last night. I know my parents struggled, and I know millions of people that are doing that. I know immigration in America is broken. No one understands this issue better than I do. My parents are immigrants. My grandparents were immigrants. Jeanette's parents were immigrants. I live in a community of immigrants. I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly. I've battled my whole life against the so-called elites, the people who think that, I needed to wait my turn or wait in line, or it wasn't our chance, or it wasn't our time. So I understand all of these frustrations. And yet when I decided to run for president, I decided to run a campaign that was realistic about all of these challenges, but also one that was optimistic about what lies ahead for our country. I know that we have a right to enforce our immigration laws, but we also have to have a realistic approach to fix it. I know that we are living through this extraordinary economic transformation that is really disruptive in people's lives. Machines are replacing them. Their pay is not enough. I know it's disruptive, but I also know this new economy has incredible opportunity. I know America can't solve all of the world's problems, but I also know that when America doesn't lead, it leaves behind a vacuum, and that vacuum leads to chaos. And most of all, I know firsthand that ours is a special nation, because where you come from here doesn't decide where you get to go. That's how a 44-year-old son of a bartender and a maid, that's how I decide that, in fact, I too can run for president of the United States of America. So, from a political standpoint, the easiest thing to have done in this campaign is to jump on all those anxieties I just talked about, to make people angrier, make people more frustrated. But I chose a different route, and I'm proud of that. Because that would have been, in a year like this, that would have been the easiest way to win. But that is not what's best for America. The politics of resentment against other people will not just leave us a fractured party. They're going to leave us a fractured nation. They're going to leave us as a nation where people literally hate each other because they have different political opinions. That we find ourselves at this point is not surprising, for the warning signs have been here for close to a decade. In 2010, a Tea Party wave carried me and others into office because not enough was happening, and that Tea Party wave gave Republicans a majority in the House. But nothing changed. In 2014, those same voters gave Republicans a majority in the Senate, and still nothing changed. And I blame some of that on the conservative movement, a movement that is supposed to be about our principles and our ideas. But I blame most of it on our political establishment. A political establishment that for far too long has looked down at conservatives as simple-minded people. Look down at conservatives as simply bomb throwers. A political establishment that for far too long has taken the votes of conservatives for granted. And a political establishment that has grown to confuse cronyism for capitalism and big business for free enterprise. I endeavored over the last 11 months to bridge this divide within our party and within our country, because I know that after 8 years of Barack Obama, this nation needs a vibrant and growing conservative movement. And it needs a strong Republican Party to change the direction now of this country. Or many of the things that are going wrong in America will become permanent. And many of the things that make us a special country will be gone. America needs a vibrant conservative movement, but one that's built on principles and on ideas, not on fear, not on anger, not on preying on people's frustrations. A conservative movement that believes in the principles of our Constitution, that protects our rights and limits the power of government. A conservative movement committed to the cause of free enterprise, the only economic model where everyone can climb without anyone falling. A conservative movement that believes in a strong national defense, and a conservative movement that believes in the strong Judeo-Christian values that are the formation of our nation. But we also need a new political establishment in our party. Not one that looks down on people that live outside of the District of Columbia, not one that tells young people that they need to wait their turn and wait in line, and not one that's more interested in winning elections than it is in solving problems or standing by principles. And this is the campaign we've run, a campaign that is realistic about the challenges we face, but optimistic about the opportunities before us. A campaign that recognizes the difficulties we face, but also one that believes that we truly are on the verge of a new American century. And a campaign to be president, a campaign to be a president that would love all of the American people, even the ones that don't love you back. This is the right way forward for our party. This is the right way forward for our country. But after tonight, it is clear that while we are on the right side, this year, we will not be on the winning side. I take great comfort in the ancient words which teaches us that in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. And so yet, while this may not have been the year for a hopeful and optimistic message about our future, I still remain hopeful and optimistic about America. And how can I not? How can I not? My mother was one of 7 girls born to a poor family. Her father was disabled as a child. He struggled to provide for them his entire life. My mother told us a few years ago she never went to bed hungry growing up, but she knows her parents did, so they wouldn't have to. She came to this country in 1956 with little education, no money, no connections. My parents struggled their first years here. They were discouraged. They even thought about going back to Cuba at one point, but they persevered. They never became rich. I didn't inherit any money from my parents. They never became famous. You never would have heard of them if I had never run for office. And yet I consider my parents to be very successful people. Because in this country, working hard as a bartender and a maid, they owned a home. And they retired with dignity. In this country, they lived to see all 4 of their children live better off than themselves. And in this country, on this day, my mother, who's now 85 years old, was able to cast a ballot for her son to be the President of the United States of America. And so, thank you. And so, while it is not God's plan that I be president in 2016 or maybe ever, and while today my campaign is suspended, the fact that I've even come this far is evidence of how special America truly is. And all the reason more why we must do all we can to ensure that this nation remains a special place. I ask the American people, do not give in to the fear. Do not give in to the frustration. We can disagree about public policy. We can disagree about it vibrantly, passionately. But we are a hopeful people, and we have every right to be hopeful. For we in this nation are the descendants of go-getters. In our veins runs the blood of people who gave it all up so we would have the chances they never did. We are all the descendants of someone who made our future the purpose of their lives. We are the descendants of pilgrims. We are the descendants of settlers. We are the descendants of men and women that headed westward in the Great Plains, not knowing what awaited them. We are the descendants of slaves who overcame that horrible institution to stake their claim in the American dream. We are the descendants of immigrants and exiles who knew and believed that they were destined for more and that there was only one place on earth where that was possible. This is who we are. And let us fight to ensure that this is who we remain. For if we lose that about our country, we'll still be rich and we'll still be powerful, but we will no longer be special. We'll keep fighting. And so I am grateful to all of you that have worked so hard for me. I truly am. I am grateful to my family, to my wife, Jeanette, who has been phenomenal in this campaign. to my 4 kids who have been extraordinary in this campaign. And I want you to know that I will continue every single day to search for ways for me to repay some of this extraordinary debt that I owe this great country. And I want to leave with an expression of gratitude to God, in whose hands all things lie. He has a plan for every one of our lives. Everything that comes from God is good. God is perfect. God makes no mistakes. And he has things planned for all of us. And we await eagerly to see what lies ahead. And so I leave tonight with one final prayer. And I use the words of King David because I remain grateful to God. Yours, O Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the victory and the majesty, indeed everything that is in the heavens and the earth. Yours is the dominion, O Lord, and you exalt yourself as head over all. Both riches and honor come from you, and you rule over all. And in your hand is power and might, and it lies in your hand to make great and to strengthen everyone. May God strengthen our people. May God strengthen our nation. May God strengthen the conservative movement. May God strengthen the Republican Party. May God strengthen our eventual nominee. And may God always bless and strengthen this great nation, the United States of America. Thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, that was Marco Rubio announcing officially that he is suspending his campaign after losing his home state of Florida there to Donald Trump. Came out pretty quickly and gave his speech. Let's go around the table for reaction. Jesse Waters.
I thought the speech was an absolute disaster, from the heckler in the beginning to the poisonous crowd booing instead of with a little class giving Donald Trump a round of applause. And he didn't connect emotionally there. What he was trying to do was say, I understand that the middle class in this country is being destroyed by trade and illegal immigration, but I'm not angry about it. Well, why aren't you angry about it? Donald Trump is angry about it, but Donald Trump is hopeful and optimistic. Donald Trump wants to make America great again, and Donald Trump says we're going to start winning.
Yeah.
You have to be able to drive those 2 points home. So I think he's trying to pivot to, I'm the 2020 outsider, anti-elitist guy who can understand your anger but really not do anything about it. And I think the best parts was when he talked about family, God, and foreign policy. Those are obviously his strengths.
Jesse, do you think that was a man, though, that just had his hopes and dreams and everything stomped on, and he's kind of standing out there and
it's an incredibly
looking for that bottle of water that, you know, eluded him so long ago?
Maybe a bottle of vodka
You
instead of
can't
water.
pull together sort of any compassion or sympathy or empathy for this man. I mean, that like broke my heart.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Really?
wasn't sure he was going to make it through the whole
one
thing.
thing I will
Maybe it's just
say-
because I'm a mother.
You're
I'm
so
like,
soft, Melissa.
No, I mean, I want
guys
to
are
go
grown
like,
up.
give him a cup of water.
Guys,
or
that's
something.
harder to do than it looks.
Yes,
for his
I
entire
know.
family. I'm just
in
saying,
his home
like,
state, but talk about that in his home state, what that
Right.
means to be standing on stage with a family member.
Well, the first thing I will say is going on, I don't think it was a very elegant speech. I think he could have done a better job, but I will say whoever his team is did a complete disservice to him with this advance. Even the camera shots, his daughter's face was half in. These are images we'll see tomorrow and forever. The lighting was bad. He looked very sweaty, which is a stigma about him. I actually didn't like his suit. Like, there are all these things that I think could have helped altogether. He didn't look very statesmanly, and if we're talking about his political future going forward, and also get the kids in front, see them crying. It'll make guys like this have a little more compassion. I've been doing this a long time. I'm a cold-hearted Politico at this point, but whoever is advancing this, I could have made it better.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, this is really nights like this. I never get joy out of this, even candidates I don't like. I find it, no matter who you are, he wanted to make America great in his own way, and it has to be emotional.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Look, I think it was a fine speech. What really struck me, though, is this is the guy that the establishment said, this is our guy. That we know that even though he's losing in all these primaries, he's the only guy that can beat Hillary Clinton. I never could understand that. How could he beat Hillary if he cannot even win his own state? But what struck me was this reference to King David. Now, this is interesting because there's been something going around on the campaign trail with the Donald Trump supporters comparing him to King David in the Old Old Testament. And they're saying, hey, look, King David was a great leader, even though he wasn't exactly the most moral person. And yes, he did kill someone. So I thought it was interesting that out of all the people that he could have mentioned in the Bible, he referenced King David there, possibly as a shot at Donald Trump.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
You want to try and follow that, Kennedy?
No, I'm not going to do a biblical exegesis of the speech. But what I will say, the first half was a disaster because we couldn't really figure out where he was going. Yeah. And I think if he had sort of logically laid out his case and maybe written it in advance, but you know, we were talking a little bit about the delusion, and his team has been saying all day yesterday, all day today, he's going on to Utah no matter what happens. They were claiming victory, you know, which is the opposite of what they're doing on the Democratic side. Interestingly, Bernie and Hillary outdoing each other, trying to go, oh no, I think I'm losing Illinois tonight, really lowering expectations. His team certainly didn't do that. But at the end, I think when he finally got over that hump of announcing that he was quitting, when he heard himself say those words, that's when the speech took off.
I agree.
That's when the fluidity and strength returned to his grasp, and he was able to drive home that message that he should have done a better job with the entire time. And I think, you know, it is heartbreaking because here he is in his home state with the people he knows. His entire family is there, and he wants so desperately for this to work out. And when he realizes that moment tonight that he has failed, that it is beyond his grasp, what that must mean to him, and coming to terms with that emotional challenge in that moment is a very heavy thing that's hard to grasp.
No, I can't. I mean, we were talking before about how, you know, are these candidates delusional? And I think you would have to be delusional to run. I know I personally could never go out there and do it. I could never put myself out there like that.
Is that because the
you
tapes
watch
in college?
them do it? Well, it's a small part of it, but yes.
Can I see some tapes?
When you please let's not head off in that direction. When you watch these folks, it's interesting, the transformation, because I remember watching Mitt Romney live on TV 8 years ago, not the last one, but the one before, and it was the best speech he gave the whole entire time. His concession speech. Yeah. He came alive and he gave the speech he should have done all along.
Gore's speech
with
also.
Marco, yes, and with some of them, it's like they become free in that moment, and all of a sudden they're great. With Marco Rubio, it was kind of like the weight of this whole entire thing, and maybe acting like he was going to win anyway had finally kind of collapsed on him. He looks like he needs a good night's sleep. I mean, I don't know. My heart was breaking for him. I know we're like on the exact opposite ends of this.
This is such an emotion. I feel like I'm on The View. This is a very emotional analysis
I like to watch
of
people
poor little
suffer.
Marco. Forget about the emotion for a second. The money dried up. The donors aren't going to sit there and just count hundreds as this guy parades across these western states and burns through their cash seeking to play spoiler. The money was gone, it was time to leave, and he's out.
Can we talk about that just for a minute? Because I think it's a really interesting point. Because when Jeb Bush got out of the race, he had this ginormous war chest and a number of donors that Marco Rubio naturally could have pivoted toward. And I think, you know, the logic was that this Florida vote was a zero-sum game. And that Marco Rubio was going to swoop in. He was going to get all this momentum once Jeb got out of the race. Like, Jeb was his big hurdle to the presidency, and he couldn't seal the deal.
And speaking of Jeb, the two
before
guys,
you respond to that, I just want to tell folks out there that are watching, we know that we are projecting now Hillary Clinton has won North Carolina. Big surprise there. Hillary Clinton winning North Carolina. Go ahead.
And just quickly, speaking of Jeb, the two guys that really took on Donald Trump, mano a mano, both crashed and burned. And he basically showed everybody in Florida who the man is.
Other than Rubio.
Well, Graham also went down in flames, too.
Chris Christie.
But look at Rick Perry, too.
Rick Perry,
I mean,
right.
He was
Every guy that tries to go toe-to-toe ends up 6 feet deep.
Okay, let's go to Fox News senior national correspondent John Roberts. He's live in Miami. He's been following the Marco Rubio campaign. Oof. I mean, was it easier to watch from there, John?
No, you know, obviously it's very disappointing for Marco Rubio and for his supporters, Melissa. And I spent a lot of time with him, and I mean a lot of time with him on the road. I even went to a Saturday morning football game with Mr. Rubio, Senator Rubio, and his wife Jeanette, and his two kids, Anthony and Dominic. And I really got a sense for what he was all about and what his family was all about. And I got to tell you that he ran a very classy campaign. He got a little dicey there for a little while when he decided to go ahead. He had to go ahead and attack Donald Trump. But for the most part, I think he ran a very classy campaign. And it was one of the ones where you felt good about following it, unlike some campaigns that I followed in the past where you got a little bit of a squirrely feeling being out there on the road with some of the candidates. And I thought it was really interesting tonight. The most poignant moment of his speech tonight, I think, is when he reached out to his mother, Aurealis, and said, my mother had a chance to cast a vote for her son for president. When you look at the history of his family, coming from Cuba in 1956, and his mother and father working jobs in the hotel service industry, his father a bartender, his mother a maid, doing it here in Miami as well as doing it in Las Vegas. I mean, it really is a statement about, the American dream and pulling yourself up from your bootstraps, that you really can become anything that you set your mind to here in the United States. So it's kind of sad to see him go from the race. It's sad to see any candidate go because, from the standpoint of whether you agree with their politics or not, he put everything into this in the same way that so many other candidates have as well. But it just looks like, and he alluded to this, that his message of optimism about the future for America wasn't really in tune with what's going on in America with the base today. When you look at what Donald Trump is saying, when you look at the way that Ted Cruz is appealing to the base, his message may have been a little bit out of step with the way people are thinking these days, Melissa.
All right, John, it's Kennedy. I have a quick question about you being on the campaign trail. Obviously, you get close to these candidates. You talk to their advisors, the people running the campaign. When did you get the first inkling that he was going to drop out of the race? What time was that?
Well, I mean, you didn't really have to have a, quote, inkling that he was going to drop out of the race because you knew that he had to win his home state or he was going to go away. And the fact that he was saying he was going to Utah tomorrow, I don't think anybody really believed that. It was just he did not want to put out a negative message while people were still going to the polls. I found out firmly at about 4:30 this afternoon, but having followed him for a long time, it was an off-the-record conversation, and he's the one who's been slogging it out in the campaign trail, and he was the one who should make the announcement, not me.
John, Todd Starnes here. Looking at the numbers, this is a pretty resounding defeat for him in Florida. What is it that the voters there saw or knew that we did not? And what does this do for his future aspirations?
Yeah, well, Dade County, Miami-Dade County, by the way, he looked like, last time I checked the numbers, and it was all absentee and early voting, he was winning overwhelmingly with about 64% of the vote. But in nearby Broward and Palm Beach counties, Donald Trump was leading with some 50% of the vote. And again, I think it's just people are upset. They're angry because they're worried about the economy. They're worried about having a job. They're worried about what their future is. They're also, as Senator Rubio alluded to, upset at the Republican Party because how many times have Republicans been elected to positions in Congress, whether it be the House or the Senate, on a pledge that they were going to change things, and nothing has changed at all. So it looks like what's happened here in Florida is the same thing happened in Michigan and South Carolina and New Hampshire and other states across the nation. People said, we're not going to listen to the establishment anymore. We're going to vote with our feet, and the way that they're voting, for the most part, is with Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. When you look at the aggregate of the vote with Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, the establishment's really only pulling about 20 to 25%. So I think that's really sort of a loud signal to the establishment that what you have been doing for maybe the last decade is not resonating with voters anymore, particularly the base. And you better get a new game or you're going to be in real trouble.
John, we have John Kasich who's tweeting out right now, make no mistake, Marco Rubio will continue to be a powerful voice for the future of the Republican Party. What do you feel like, what's your sense on the trail there of what the future holds for him?
Yeah, and actually you had asked me that a second ago.
Yeah.
By the time I got through that whole explanation, my addled brain, I forgot. There's a couple of ways forward for Marco Rubio. There's a 2018 governor's race that's open because Rick Scott is term limited. He could potentially throw his hat into the ring for that. But I think that he continues to have presidential aspirations. So if he did run for governor, the first pledge that everyone who would vote for him would want to hear is, do you pledge to fulfill a full term? So that would leave him out of the 2020 race. It could put him in for 2024, but if Hillary Clinton wins in November of this year, he'd probably want to come back in 2020. Another possible option for him would be after he finishes up in the Senate, January of next year, he could go on the speaking circuit and most likely make oodles of money. And then he would have a buffer that he could sit on to be able to run for president again in 2020. The one thing that he really kind of needs, though, because this was the big knock on Marco Rubio all throughout this election campaign, is this much executive experience. And when you're up against governors, and I assume that he would be up against governors again in 2020, you need to have some executive experience to rely on. The best way to get that, most likely, would be to run for governor, but then there's that timing problem again. So I'm not sure which way he's going to jump, but if he does run for president, he needs to get some sort of experience under his belt where he can say, I've run things and I know what it's like to run things, so that he's not tabbed with that, oh, another first-term senator, how did that work out for you in 2008 again?
Yeah.
I mean, he's still going to be very young, though, in 2024 if he decides to wait until then. I guess it just...
Yeah, he'd be 52, 53.
Yeah, and if you're 52 years old with a governorship under your belt, you're in a vastly different position than you would be if you are a United States senator in essentially the same spot in 4 years.
Hey, John.
Yeah, but again, yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, but you're kind of rolling the dice that if the Republican is won this year, then he couldn't run until 2024, and then therefore probably you could run for governor in 2018. But if the Democrat wins, he's probably going to want to be there 4 years from now. So that's where the calculation gets a little dicey.
Jesse Waters.
John, you were in the room when the entire crowd booed Donald Trump's name when Marco Rubio congratulated the Donald. That sounded very venomous. It wasn't like boo, it was like very, very, very vitriolic. Did you get the sense there that these people are never, ever going to vote for Donald Trump if he is the nominee? Or did you get the sense this, maybe there's been some alcohol, some emotion in the room, and maybe they'll come around? What was your interpretation?
Well, I can tell you there's been no alcohol served here tonight. In fact, the bar is occupied by about 25 television cameras. There was nothing that was flowing this evening. And I've been to a lot of these, Jesse, and I don't know that the boos were any more vitriolic than they would be if another candidate had won. When your candidate goes down to defeat, particularly when it's a campaign-ending defeat, people are very upset. But there's no question that there are deep divisions among voters in Florida when it comes to Donald Trump, and perhaps there was a little bit more edge. It was sort of the type of boo, to be honest with you, that you would hear for a Democratic candidate, although they do tend to be a little more vitriolic when it comes to Hillary Clinton than they are when it comes to Bernie Sanders. But I don't know how many Rubio supporters would go to Donald Trump. There's probably a few. And we'll see if Donald Trump benefits from Marco Rubio being out of the race when we've got these contests in Arizona and Utah coming up next week. That will really tell the tale. I expect that there are a lot that could go to Kasich. I expect if he wins tonight and stays in, and there are a lot that could go to Cruz. And maybe the majority go to those two candidates rather than Donald Trump. But here's the thing, Jesse. In Florida, he's really popular. There's no question about that. So there are a lot more people that like him here than don't like him.
Right.
John Roberts, thank you so much. Appreciate your reporting. Always fantastic.
Thank you.
Let me go back to the table. Megan, let me ask you, what advice would you give to Marco Rubio right now? I mean, we'll let him sleep through the night. Go home. Get some rest. When he wakes up in the morning, then what advice do you give him?
Don't do any reality shows, ever. I'm not joking.
Do The Apprentice.
I think I'm kidding.
Yeah.
They're going to come running for him right now. I'm not kidding. Don't do anything tawdry, tacky. I know it's what's popular now. We have a reality television host as #1. I still think his career, his legacy, he should get really serious, maybe focus on running for governor, make speeches, I agree, but take this very seriously. I think a lot of people sort of turn this into something that's a celebrity fest after they lose, and I think that's entirely the wrong move.
Yeah, what kind of, what executive experience? John made a great point about that was the knock on him. And if he goes away and you evaluate kind of what went wrong, there's something you would do. What do you think is the best? Because that's not necessarily the same question that it's always been. I mean, it was, have you run a state? Now it's, have you run something? I mean, I don't know. What should he do?
I think he would make an amazing governor. I really do. And Florida could really use a great governor right now. Executive experience, I don't know enough about the business world to know what Americans want from businessmen right now. Donald Trump's business dealings I find questionable and nefarious. We're not talking about Elon Musk here. So, and again, will this tide change soon? That's the thing, is right at this moment, maybe that's what people want. I still think go home and run for governor. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I think he has to work on those conservative bona fides. I do think running for governor is a great idea. Again, that was one of the beeps. Another one was his work ethic in the Senate. That was another big problem for folks. But when I heard his concession speech, some of the things I did not hear, guys, were the issues that we hear about from the folks that are watching us right now online, and those are issues involving jobs and immigration. And look, for whatever reason, like he said, this go around, he just did not resonate, and his message did not resonate with those voters.
Yeah, I think also, you know, he tried to, again, have it both ways on immigration in this speech. And he had some very moving moments saying we are the descendants of pilgrims, the descendants of slaves and settlers and immigrants. And pretty much anyone listening, that rings true because they can think of someone in their family who has done that. And I understand there's a lot of compassion there, but where does the policy come after that? I think he needs to put his head down and he needs to graduate to the next level of policy creator. And he also has to figure out philosophically, what kind of leader is he? Is he a libertarian? Is he a conservative? Because he really is all over the map.
Okay, right now we're hearing that Fox News is in fact calling Ohio for Governor Kasich. So Governor Kasich has taken Ohio. Here, we can look right there. You can see the breakdown there. Calling it for John Kasich, taking 43%. Wow. As of right now, that's a big margin right there in Ohio. Let's go around the table. Jesse, what do you think?
My hat's off to John Kasich. He's a former colleague of all of ours, and he did an excellent job running the state of Ohio, and big night for him. I don't see what other state he wins after this. And let's look at what happened in Ohio. I mean, Trump was just shellacked by a lot of outside money, $35 million in negative advertising. I don't think Trump really was on the air much in Ohio. He was tweeting a lot. He was giving a lot of speeches. He was getting a lot of earned media from all of us here at Fox and all the other cables. So when you have the Pope against you and you have the administration in D.C. and the president of Mexico and they're saying you're a KKK member and you still kind of plow forward, you win Florida, but you don't win Ohio. It's tough. It's not a great night for Donald Trump, but it's a solid night. But this just makes things a lot more interesting.
Todd, do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I think we need to start talking about contested convention at this point. That was the big issue. If Kasich could win Ohio, that was sort of like the bellwether. That was the stopgap right there. And look, Jesse, you've got a point here. I mean, look, Donald Trump, everything they've thrown at this guy. I mean, my goodness, you know, I'm from Mississippi, and so I kind of understand how this goes. They had us believing that Donald Trump was down at Mar-a-Lago dressed in a white bedsheet with a pointy hat burning a cross in the backyard, and it didn't matter. It did not matter.
But
people could care less.
But it's going to matter in the general, which, by the way, Meet the Press tweeted 41% of GOP Ohio voters would consider a third-party candidate if Donald Trump is the nominee. There's a lot of dirty little statistics right now if he is the nominee. General election's different than base primary voters in Florida. This shows he's vulnerable.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. I really think you can look at it both ways because on the other hand, they're throwing everything they have at him. I mean, everything.
To Republican primary voters.
But this was, you know, the worst week on the books for Donald Trump.
Somebody needs to show me how he's going to get the Latino vote. Somebody needs to show me someplace how this is going to happen.
The Latinos love him, and he talked about that because he said they love him.
And so do blacks, obviously, and the women, too.
The women love him. Women don't care about.
The question I have for everyone is: a contested convention a death knell?
Yes, it absolutely is. And even if you don't support Donald Trump, even if you have issues with his policy and the fact that he could be a liberty-thwarting authoritarian, he still is the person who's getting the most votes. And, you know, it may not be the ideal outcome for a lot of people, but that is the outcome. This is the country that we live in. And now that John Kasich gets those 66 delegates in Ohio, he still has fewer than Marco Rubio.
No, he has fewer than Marco Rubio.
That is true. I mean, he still has fewer delegates than Marco Rubio, and there's not a direct way where he's going to get any more. He cannot win the election outright. That doesn't mean that he deserves a contested convention, because if Ohio were proportional and not a winner-take-all state, we would be having a different conversation with a different level of enthusiasm about John Kasich.
Does John Kasich care? Like, at a certain point, like, I thought John Kasich debatably should have dropped out, and we should have made this Cruz and Trump just battle it out for real to see the conservative will of the party. Yeah, with swords maybe. At a certain point, for John Kasich and for Ted Cruz, if the writing is on the wall, if he gets, like, I don't know, 1,150 delegates, at a certain point, are they just going to bow out and say he got the major majority?
They're not. I don't think they are. And I also think that that's what this win in Ohio means. It means that Cruz and Kasich are both we're just going to stop Trump from getting there. There isn't a clear path for us to get to the 1237.
I disagree.
So we're only staying in to stop
completely,
him.
because Cruz is going to put so much pressure on Kasich, because the polling shows that if it becomes a two-man race in the remaining states, Cruz can do better than Trump.
And you think Cruz, he's going to push Kasich out? out.
But
I
the
think that's
question
what's
is-
correct. No,
I'm
I
sure
think
he
he wants
wants
to.
to.
Of course he
But
wants to.
But
No,
here's
he's not
the-
going to
Here's the
successfully
bigger
push that.
issue, though. Will the establishment go for Cruz?
Yeah.
And I think they hate him more than they hate Donald Trump.
Nope, not true. I
Absolutely.
hate Trump more than Cruz, and I'm the dirty establishment number patient zero.
But-
I like Cruz a lot more than I like
but
Donald Trump.
Donald
the
Trump.
outbreak monkey?
I'm the outbreak monkey. I'm the spawn of the outbreak monkey of the dirty establishment.
Well, Donald
Listen,
Trump.
I'm sort of throwing it back at everybody. You want to do it to me? I'm patient zero, dirty establishment.
Donald Trump was throwing around a word a couple of weeks ago with flexibility. He said he's flexible and
Right.
all that kind of. I almost think that was a buzzword or code word for the establishment types
Yeah.
to know that, you know what, maybe we can work with this guy, but we know we can't work with Ted Cruz. So that's why I think that given the choice, they would rather go with Donald Trump
That's
than
actually
Ted
a
Cruz.
really, really important point because, as you remember, in the last debate, Ted Cruz jumped all over that word, and he's been using that in his stump speeches, talking about Donald Trump's willingness to be flexible, talking about that flexibility. And what he could be doing is painting himself into a corner as an inflexible ideologue, which is not what the establishment wants.
Rush Limbaugh, I was listening to him today. He had a fascinating theory that he was talking about, where we go to a contested convention and the guy that they choose is Jeb Bush.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
his,
my
that's
God.
his thing.
There is
Jeb
no,
Bush.
I guarantee you.
Talk about revolt.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, you ditto heads.
That is revolting, isn't it?
That is revolting.
If that happens, all I'm going to do is start pouring everybody tequila shots because I give up. If Jeb
Do we
is
really
the
have
one,
to wait for Jeb to get back in for that?
But I mean, that's ridiculous. Do you think that's ridiculous?
Oh, I think it's outrageously
Yes.
ridiculous.
And you
They
act
listen.
like-
They,
And what's more ridiculous, though? I mean, Romney or Bush as the parachuted?
Romney is more ridiculous.
I-
But you know,
I agree.
speaking of Romney, I remember when they nominate Romney and they nominate McCain.
They nominate
They
Romney.
nominated him. That was after a few tequila shots. And they said everybody has to get in line. Everybody has to fall in line and soldier up and get behind the nominee. So now Trump's kind of charging through to the finish line, maybe not right there. And people are saying, get in line, let's soldier up. And they're saying, no, we're going to go third party. We're going to have a floor fight at the convention. You know, why is it okay if we do it then, but it's not okay now? And to be honest with you, there's not enough delegates that these guys are accumulating. What's Kasich got 66, and Cruz has got, a couple hundred less now
Kasich
after
got
tonight.
63. Well, now he's got
you can't
129.
have a floor fight when you have a handful of delegates. It's not enough. Maybe Cruz can squeeze a VP slot
Yeah.
out
It's
of this
it's
at
like
the
going into a
convention.
strip club with a
But
handful
no
of
one's going to
orders.
steal
way.
the convention.
You can't really make it rain
out of
with
Trump's
Nichols.
hands.
Yeah.
won't be
All right, let's go around. You can see at the bottom of your screen there that what we're doing is we're waiting to hear from Donald Trump and also John Kasich tonight. What do you think that they're going to say? Well, let's start with which Donald Trump are we going to see tonight? What do you think?
I think Trump has to hang his hat on Florida. He put all of his chips on Florida. That's where all his time and his money was, and he needed it. It was 99. Forget Ohio. He barely spent a dime there. He was very cost conscious. He's going to blow that off and say, who cares about Ohio? And he might win North Carolina. And he might win Missouri. So at the end of the night, he could win a few states
Yeah.
here and claim victory. He might have to take a few shots at Marco, I assume.
Little Mark.
Oh.
No,
I don't
You don't think so?
I don't think
You think he's
no,
going to be
I
gracious?
think once someone
I
is
think
no
he'll be
longer a
gracious.
threat to Donald Trump,
Yeah.
he then completely flips the script, and I
Yes.
think he's
Yep.
going to be very
He's gonna be nice
gracious
to
to him
Marco.
His
tonight.
opening line,
Yeah.
little Marco grew up tonight. That's
No,
that's
I
my
don't
prediction.
think he has to, and I think he realizes that once Rubio walked back his comments, once he talked about regretting them, he neutralized himself as a
Yeah.
threat, and therefore I think you're going to see a
The
lovely
question
a gilded olive branch.
But is Rubio going to join Never Trump, or is he going to support Donald Trump? That's the other big question going
That will
into
be
this.
interesting to watch. That's right, because it's been hard for us to imagine a lot of these people who've really gotten down and dirty with Donald Trump then going on his side. I, of course, remember when Chris Christie said a lot of very negative things. Now he's like his new sidekick,
Yeah.
standing in the background at every shot. Jesse, I've got to call you on. You did one of the things that Trump always accuses the media of doing, where you talked about him winning 4 out of 5 and calling that a victory. Where for any other candidate, if they won 4 out of 5 tonight, it would have been a miracle. Like the press would have freaked out. We would all be like, that's the hugest victory ever. But you just did the thing that the people that are bashing Trump do.
I don't really understand your accusation, but maybe it's because I'm not that smart. But if I was Trump, I would say, I won Florida. It's the big victory. Marco's gone. I'm knocking these guys out one by one. It's coalescing around the two-man race now. Cruz is next, and then we'll pivot to Hillary, and she's toast. I don't think you dwell on Ohio if I were Donald Trump. I think you kind of blow it off and
But I'm
focus
saying
on the win.
I'm not sure you need to dress it up as a victory. If you've won 4 out of 5, that's a victory.
Absolutely. I don't know if we're going to get the
but Ohio's
victories
a big
called by
loss.
the time he speaks.
He didn't just lose Puerto Rico, honey. He lost Ohio, and Ohio was a battleground state in the general.
And
also
islands
out in the
by the way,
middle of
I know North Mariana
And my
Islands.
favorite is that Samoa has delegate. It always makes me laugh.
But here's
people out
here's
Yes.
Good people. Todd's
I think it's a really
there.
nice place. I've been. Yeah.
An interesting thing, and Megan, you brought this up just a few moments ago, was this new question that we asked in our Fox exit polling about a third-party candidate. Roughly 3 out of 5 in all the states said they would seriously consider that. Now,
I'm rolling my eyes. I'm rolling my eyes.
If you go to Fox News, foxnews.com right now, they have a great column on the opinion page that addresses this issue, written by a seminary professor out in the Carolinas. And this is important because the evangelical vote here is fractured. It was going to, it's going to Trump, some of us going to Rubio, the rest of us going to Cruz. So the question is, what happens if, in fact, the evangelicals en masse would support a third-party candidate? I think that would certainly doom whatever the Republican candidate would be.
Who that's the ultimate
That's the
question.
question.
It would be
Who would
Todd
it be?
Starnes.
But who could they possibly put up
I can either
that hasn't
confirm
been
or
in the race,
deny.
that hasn't already been beaten in this election
Right.
cycle, who wasn't beaten 4 years ago? Someone who could possibly self-finance. It doesn't seem like there is a natural candidate.
I don't think evangelicals are going to go for Bloomberg
Isn't
or
it
Romney.
fascinating, though? We were talking months ago about what an amazing lineup of candidates we had on the Republican side, and now it's,
And
But there isn't that person. I mean, who would you? Because you're the one that started that premise. Who gets drafted in that scenario?
Well, if I was a betting man, I would say maybe a Cruz Rubio ticket.
Yeah. Somebody like Tom Colburn, like from middle of the country, very anti-establishment, but still has a lot of cred, in the middle of the country.
Well, someone who actually has a vested interest in cutting spending.
Yes.
Can I just get back to Rubio really quickly and Donald Trump, because I think that's a big issue. That's a big question that is going to remain out there until he objectively answers it. It's such a fun question.
It is a fun one.
You're absolutely right. If you listen to his speech when he was making the big run-up to pulling out, he was saying, don't get caught up in the anger. We should still be an optimistic country. This is still a great country. Don't get caught up in, and I think that's his way of saying how much he dislikes Donald Trump. And I think if there's any clue that he was giving people listening tonight, that was it, that he's not going to
That's why
hop
I
on
think
the Trump train.
he's so disconnected, because the country's so angry right now and they feel so betrayed. So to say not get caught up in the anger is telling the voters, you guys don't know what you're talking about. This country feels so betrayed. If you look at the exit poll, like Todd said, on trade, on immigration, you've had Tea Party waves in the midterms.
Yeah.
They have the Senate, they have the House, they lifted the debt ceiling. He's cutting deals with the Iranians, the Bergdahl trade, executive amnesty. The Republican Party and conservatives and Americans have been hosed. What have they got from Paul Ryan as Speaker of the House? They've got this huge budget. What have they gotten from Mitt Romney? Hadn't gotten a lot. So I think people feel betrayed, and the one guy that's giving voice to this betrayal
is Bernie Sanders.
I was about to say.
I mean, that's
Donald
both
Trump and
sides.
Bernie Sanders.
That is absolutely
no,
right.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it is on both
amazing
sides.
that, just the mirror image
You're right.
of how we're seeing on both sides. We're getting ready.
Curmudgeonly New Yorkers who have a populist, anti-establishment, anti-free trade message, and here they are. People try and draw these contrasts, but they're practically twins.
No. This is an interesting point. I live out in Brooklyn, and I've got some Italian neighbors in their 70s, and they smoke marijuana out on their stoop in the afternoon because it's cheaper than their meds.
Drives Todd crazy.
And it's very relaxing. And
For you?
And they tell me, hey, I'm a mellow kind of a guy. But Kennedy, it's interesting because we were having a chat the other day, and they're all supporting Donald Trump. They're big Trump folks, and they're Democrats.
I don't think he's going to reschedule marijuana. I wish he would. I wish there was any candidate remaining who would come out and be really pro-freedom. I fear that person doesn't exist. Even a third party.
Yeah,
We're hearing that Hillary Clinton is going to come out and speak shortly.
Is that a warning?
As well. Oh, there she is. Let's listen.
Oh my gosh!
Took short.
is another Super Tuesday for our campaign. Thank you, Florida. Thank you, North Carolina. Thank you, Ohio. You know, although we're waiting for final results in Illinois and Missouri, we know we will add to our delegate lead to roughly 300 with over 2 million more votes nationwide. We are moving closer to securing the Democratic Party nomination and winning this election in November. You know, because of all of you and our supporters across the country, our campaign has earned more votes than any other candidate, Democrat or Republican. And I want to congratulate Senator Sanders for the vigorous campaign he's waging. Now today, all of you in the states where contests were held voted to break down the barriers that hold us all back so every one of us can share in the promise of America. You voted. You voted for our tomorrow to be better than our yesterday. Tomorrow where all of us do our part and everyone has a chance to live up to his or her God-given potential. Because that's how America can live up to its potential too. Now we need you to keep working, keep volunteering, keep contributing at HillaryClinton.com. Please join the 950,000 supporters who already have contributed, most less than $100, because our campaign depends on small donations for the majority of our support. We can't do this without you. So if you've been waiting for the right moment, now's the time to come join us. You know, tonight it's clearer than ever that this may be one of the most consequential campaigns of our lifetimes. The next president will walk into the Oval Office next January, sit down at that desk, and start making decisions that will affect the lives and the livelihoods of everyone in this country, indeed everyone on this planet. Now I know that easy decisions don't make it to the president's desk, only the hardest choices and the thorniest problems. I saw President Obama wrestle with the decision to send Navy SEALs after Osama bin Laden, the decision to rescue the auto industry, to fight for the Affordable Care Act, and so many more. And so, our next president has to be ready to face three big tests. First, can you make positive differences in people's lives? Second, can you keep us safe? Third, can you bring our country together again? Now making differences in people's lives comes first because Americans everywhere are hungry for solutions. They want to break down the barriers holding them back so we can all rise together. Ask any parent. You'll hear nothing is more important than making sure their kids have a good school and a good teacher no matter what zip code they live in. They deserve a president who understands that when we invest in our children's education, we're investing in all of our futures. And young people across America struggling under the weight of student debt find it difficult to imagine the futures they want. And they deserve a president who will help relieve them of that burden and help future generations go to college without borrowing a dime for tuition. And you know, grandparents who worry about retirement deserves a president who will protect and then expand Social Security for those who need it most, not cut or privatize it. Families deserve a president who will fight for the things that are priorities at home, but too often aren't priorities in Washington. Affordable child care, paid family leave, and something we have waited for long enough, equal pay for equal work for women. And above all, hardworking Americans across our country deserve a president with both the ideas and the know-how to create good jobs with rising incomes right here in our country. And I am absolutely convinced that we have the tools to do that. That's why I've laid out a program to do what can be done. More good jobs in infrastructure, more good jobs in manufacturing. More good jobs in small businesses. More good jobs in clean, renewable energy. Good-paying jobs are the ticket to the middle class, and we're going to stand up for the American middle class again. We're going to stand up for American workers and make sure no one takes advantage of us. Not China, not Wall Street, and not overpaid corporate executives. Now look, of course, every candidate makes promises like this. But every candidate owes it to you to be clear and direct about what our plans will cost and how we're going to make them work. That's the difference between running for president and being president. And I'll tell you, president is keeping us safe. We live in a complex and, yes, a dangerous world. Protecting America's national security can never be an afterthought. Our commander-in-chief has to be able to defend our country, not embarrass it. Engage our allies, not alienate them. Defeat our adversaries, not embolden them. When we hear a candidate for president call for rounding up 12 million immigrants, banning all Muslims from entering the United States, when he embraces torture, that doesn't make him strong, it makes him wrong. President has to bring our country together so we can all share in the promise of America. We should be breaking down barriers, not building walls. We're not going to succeed by dividing this country between us and them. You know, to be great, we can't be small. We can't lose what made America great in the first place. And this isn't just about Donald Trump. All of us have to do our part. We can't just talk about economic inequality. We have to take on all forms of inequality and discrimination. Together, we have to defend all of our rights, civil rights and voting rights, workers' rights and women's rights, LGBT rights, and rights for people with disabilities. And that starts by standing with President Obama when he nominates a justice to the Supreme Court. Our next president will face all these challenges and more. You know, running for president is hard, but being president is harder. It is the hardest, most important job in the world, and no one person can succeed at the job without seeking and finding common ground to solve the problems we face. If we work together, we can make a real difference in people's lives. If we reach out to treat each other with respect, kindness, and even love instead of bluster and bigotry, if we lift each other up instead of tearing each other down, there's nothing we can't accomplish together. So please join me in this campaign. Every vote counts. Every volunteer hour counts. Every contribution counts. 8 years ago, on the night of the Ohio primary, I said I was running for everyone who's ever been counted out but refused to be knocked out, for everyone who has stumbled but stood right back up, for everyone who works hard and never gives up. Well, that is still true. Our campaign is for the steel worker I met in Ohio on Sunday night, who's laid off but hoping to get back to work. It's for the mother I met in Miami, whose 5 children haven't seen their father since he was deported. She dreams of a day when deportations end and families are reunited on a path to citizenship in America. It is for the mothers I stood with in Chicago yesterday who have lost children to gun violence. They're turning their sorrow into a strategy and their mourning into a movement. Let's stand with people who have courage, who have resilience. Let's stand with everyone who believes America's best days are ahead of us. For all of our challenges, I've never had more faith in our future. And if we work together, if we go forward in this campaign, if we win in November, I know our future will be brighter tomorrow than yesterday. Thank you all so very much.
You sounded creepy.
Wow. All right. So there's Hillary Clinton giving her victory speech there. We had a lot of comments around the table.
Oh, dear God in heaven.
Well, there was that one.
The voice, just make it
Who wants to go
stop.
first? I mean, that was one of her better speeches, though.
But it's the voice.
Yeah?
I mean,
No?
You know,
Is that a voice or is that a candidate allowed to say getting stabbed in a combine?
I actually want to defend this because when men say this,
Yeah, you
people are
can't
always
say
like,
that.
"Oh, you're sexist." Like you're going to get tweets saying you're sexist. I actually find the tone of her voice, like I think it's like so aggressive and so loud. It's like, just make a normal speech. Just make a stub speech. It's great. Why are you
In your
screaming
voice,
so
like,
much?
you're absolutely right.
The way I'm speaking right now. I mean, maybe a little higher in a big room.
She does
She
the
was big on the
preacher voice,
rhyming.
too, yeah.
She was
was.
talking
She
about
said-
Donald Trump doesn't make him strong. It makes him wrong when he's
Right.
talking about
Did the
torture. Give me
Jesse
some of the
Jackson
others,
thing.
Kennedy. You got the
No,
hits.
it's when he embraces torture. It doesn't make him strong. It makes him wrong. It makes me want to smoke a bong and eat a ding dong. She makes me want to gobble a handful of pills. She makes me want to buy a one-way ticket to New Zealand so I can dig a hole, find Middle Earth, and become a hobbit. If nothing else, I want to find Frodo's ring so I can disappear when she takes the oath.
I agree.
And I mean that as a compliment. I mean that in all
I agree.
sincerity.
But Megan, everybody behind her looked so excited and so happy.
But this is what we were just
though.
talking about is Democrats have great advance, great optics, great production. That's how Obama got elected in a lot of different ways. She is bleeding female voters right now, and they've got a lot of young women, young minorities behind her with flags, waving signs. I'm sorry, I've been doing this. I know what the background's like. They went and rounded up a lot of young women, and they were like, put her behind her. Look like young women are supporting her right now when we know that's a weak spot for her.
They probably put them in a rope pen.
Yeah, but all that, they hand them their signs, they have their little flags, and I will say it works. It's why Advance, you're paid so well to do it. And Republicans, by the way, Donald Trump or whomever it is, whoever's our nominee, we cannot have these optics in these rallies where it's just a bunch of old people behind us from here on out. Again, I'm not saying it's right. People don't look at the demographics the way we do, but it's one thing this election Republicans have got to learn.
Okay,
but wait,
Donald
Megan
Trump,
made a great
Donald
point,
Trump
though.
put himself in front of American flags and plates of meat last week. I think he has a better grasp of optics.
Yeah,
And he
than
turned,
some people.
the Trump water into Trump wine.
There you go.
It was a beautiful thing.
Megan makes a great point, though, that I think maybe a lot of our viewers don't understand at home. You have to look at the composition of the screen and what's going on behind her there. And when you see people holding up these signs that look like, you know, they went out to Walmart and they bought the paints and they did it themselves.
Nope.
Megan says, no, that's not how that happens. Fill us
Listen,
in.
they did it on my dad's campaign too. Advance. I mean, look, see how
Her
Noel
people
it's
are
written.
painting those signs.
People,
It looks like
campaign
Bush.
people are
It's
people are
joined us,
writing it.
but it looks
It's fine.
like-
Listen, it's part of the game. It's again,
Yeah.
I'm not going to hate on it. They're just doing a good job of it.
Right.
And I'm just saying this
Right.
is most likely who we're going to be up against. And they have the optics of this. She's on Broad City this week, which is a very popular show with young women on Comedy Central. Like they
It
do
must be,
this
'cause I
well.
haven't heard of
The
it.
power of
Yeah.
pop culture is important, and I have harped on this for a long time. And people think it's crazy. It helped Obama. It continues to help Obama. He just had the cast of Hamilton at the White House. And Donald Trump, as much as he's playing to a certain demographic, if he is the national nominee, he's going to have to reach out to another demographic. And it can't just look like rallies where it's one type of person supporting Donald Trump.
He's got Dennis Rodman, whom he's going to appoint ambassador to North Korea, which will be
Oh my
great. It'll be
gosh.
a permanent full-time post in Pyongyang. And he's got Stephen Baldwin. I don't think he needs much more than that.
But
Stephen
isn't this an
Baldwin.
interesting point, though? Because we talk about how the Republican Party is not good at this, is out of touch with how to connect with a voter right now. But then you have a candidate who is a marketing genius, who is a reality star. Maybe he's finally the guy who can change up. I mean, you say that a lot of it has to do with using the same people over and over again, not trusting new people. Well, Donald Trump's not going to use the same people over and over again. He would bring in new people. Maybe he would be the one to turn the page on the terrible optics that Republicans put out there.
Yeah, and I'd love to see a general rally with him. I mean, I'd love to see a general rally he does. Again, I just think it can't look like all white mass everywhere and all older people.
What's
quite
wrong with
frankly.
white people,
there's
Megan?
nothing wrong
Come
with it, but there's
on.
other
Can
white
we
men.
get some
But
white
because
guys
we've
in the
got
mix?
that demographic locked down. That demographic is locked down for Republicans.
For Bernie
It's fine.
Sanders, actually.
I
Bernie
know.
Sanders
And for Bernie
doing
Sanders as
better
well,
with
by the way.
white people than
But to,
This is true.
but to
He's
the
doing-
speech
he's doing
here.
better,
Here,
though.
what is this here? Hold on, here we go.
That's interesting.
You better believe it's about America, about pulling us together, not pulling us apart. It is about USA. Exactly. Well, first of all, I want to Listen, everybody, let me, hey. Well, you know, when you you went to college in the 1970s, you appreciate a good, peaceful protest every once in a while, huh? Yeah, you do. First of all, you know, when you're in the arena and you are struggling and you leave your family to go out on the campaign trail and deliver a message to America because you believe that you are the best qualified person to be president of the United States, and you put it all on the line, and your family puts it all on the line. And I want this crowd here tonight to give a great response to a very, very great, talented, and fine United States Senator Marco Rubio for the effort that he has done. Tonight we arrived in Cleveland, and we went to a restaurant. We thought we could kind of sneak in and grab a quick meal. And when we walked through the restaurant, people started to cheer. My reaction? I said, please don't do that because you're going to make me cry. But to have people believe in you and to believe that you can bring people together and strengthen our country, I have to thank the people of the great state of Ohio. I love you, is all I can tell you. I love you. You know, when I became governor of Ohio, I went to New York, and I met with some of the rating agencies. Things were bad. We had lost 350,000 jobs. We were $8 billion in the hole, and our credit was hanging in the balance. And they told me, we're about to cut up your credit card and give you a new one where you can't buy as much. I said, you don't understand Ohio. You don't understand Ohioans. So I can't wait to go back again. We're now up 400,000 plus jobs. We're running a $2 billion surplus. Our pensions are secure. We've cut taxes by more than any governor in this country, and we are leaving no one behind. Not the mentally ill, the drug addicted, the working poor. And I don't know whether you can actually serve a meal of words, but I would like to go back to those credit rating agencies with them where they can learn to eat their words about doubting Ohio, huh? And you know, ladies and gentlemen, you know, look, my whole life has been about trying to create a climate of opportunity for people. You know, as my father carried that mail on his back, and his father was a coal miner, and, you know, I just was told by my cousin, I didn't realize this, that my mother, one of four, was the only one to graduate from high school. The other three barely made it out of the 8th grade because they were poor. And, you know, as I've traveled the country and I look into your eyes, you want to believe again that we can have job security. You want to believe again that wages can rise. You want to believe that your children are going to have ultimately a better America than what we got from our mothers and fathers. That's the great American legacy, that our kids will be better than we are. And I want people in Ohio to know, as I think you do, I want people around the country to know that I understand these tough issues. I grew up in these situations in that little blue-collar town in McKees Rocks. And in my mind's eye is the need to Forget the politics, forget the pollsters, forget all the focus groups, because you see, I represent you. And it is my job to look at these situations and these problems and to listen to you. And then it's my job to go and fix them. And if that means at times I have to take some heat, well, then that's just the price of leadership in America, okay? Now, I want you to know the campaign goes on. And I also want you to know that it's been my intention to make you proud. It's been my intention to have young people all across this country watch somebody and enter into politics, even though I labored in obscurity for so long, people counting me out, people in Ohio saying, why don't they ever call on him, okay? We get all that. But we put one foot in front of the other, and I want to remind you again tonight that I will not take the low road to the highest office in the land. You know, the challenges that we have, we can go to Washington in the first 100 days, fix these problems with a shock and awe agenda that can pass. I think we can rally the people in Washington, because I'm going to remind them that before we're Republicans and Democrats, we're Americans, and we have an obligation to our children. But I really believe this and want you to know this. And maybe in many respects, this is why I've been given a chance to stand here tonight and have earned a victory. You know, the Lord's made everybody here special. I've been telling people this all across the country. Nobody, sir, has ever been made like you before, and no one will ever be like you again. And young lady, you're here in a moment in time, and your job is to find that purpose that you have. Your job is to live a little life a little bit bigger than yourself. Your job is to be a center of healing and justice and hope in whatever way we can. If we're a school teacher, we give up money to change lives. If we're a nurse, we work 15 extra minutes when we're dead on our feet because we want to assure a family that things are going to be okay. And if we are a neighbor, that means that widow who was married for 50 years, who no one calls anymore. You want to change the world? You take her to dinner on Saturday night. She'll wear that dress she hadn't worn in 6 months. I trust you to do it. You see, what I learned as a boy, what I learned from my mother and father, is that the spirit of America rests in us. It doesn't rest in a big-time politician, the big wigs. Look, you hire us to go do the job, plain and simple, to create an environment of economic growth and opportunity. But that's not where our spirit is. Our spirit is in us, believing that through our efforts, in whichever part of the world that we live, that we can change the world, that we can carve out a better future, that we can realize that those special gifts that were given to each and every one of us in here are something that we can use to heal the world. And you know, we're all part of a giant mosaic, a snapshot in time, all of us here. And it is our job as Americans, our job as people who want to be decent and live good lives, is to dig down and understand that purpose and never underestimate our ability to change the world in which we live. Well, guess what? Tomorrow, I'm going to Philadelphia. And then I'm going, I don't know, all over the country, okay? And many of you have traveled around this country trying to help me. You know what? Look, this is all I got, okay? This is all I got. And all I can say is thank you from the bottom of my heart. But I want you to know something. We are going to go all the way to Cleveland and secure the Republican nomination.
Okay, that was Governor John Kasich. You hear there giving his speech in Ohio and saying that he's going on to Philadelphia and beyond. We are interrupting this because we want to show you what has happened in North Carolina. Fox News is projecting that Donald Trump has won North Carolina right now. You can see that on your screen. 47% about of the vote is in so far, and you can see Donald Trump there with a decisive victory with 40% of the vote, a little more than that, 40.3. Ted Cruz coming in second with 36%. John Kasich, who you just heard speaking, who won Ohio, who's going on to Philly and everywhere else beyond that, with 12% of the vote, and Marco Rubio, who we heard earlier this evening, putting his campaign on pause, coming in last place there. A lot to react to. Let's go around the table. Todd Starnes, you were the one that got cut off last time.
Well,
Tell
look,
me what you're thinking.
This is a big win for Donald Trump, a big night for him. Yeah. He not only won the SEC primary, but now it looks like he's winning the ACC primary there in North Carolina. So his message is resonating. Looking at some of the other states, though, I mean, these numbers coming out of Illinois, that is really an amazing, that's an amazing number. And you have to wonder how much the protest and his reaction to those protests really impacted the vote to turn out there, and it basically, I think it won him some more votes.
Yeah, in Illinois, we're not calling that one. I mean, we don't have enough of the vote in, and what you're referring to is the fact that in the polls so far, as the tallies are coming in, it's looking good. He's looking in the lead.
He's up by about 15 points in
Yeah.
Illinois, and you know, you're absolutely right. And at any point during this campaign, when people say, "Well, that's it, Trump has gone too far," whether it was the day that he announced and he talked about Mexican rapists and drug dealers pouring over the border, people are like, well, that's it. Like he's never going to have a viable candidacy. He's started a race war. Bill Maher said that, and you know, every stunt, every speech, every insult, so many people, the conventional wisdom has been, well, this is it. This is the implosion point. And people might have said that after seeing some of those images from the Chicago protests this weekend, but certainly it was another galvanizing factor.
Kennedy, I sat there and watched that, and I thought his numbers are going to go up. And again, he is able to reach a demographic and connect with the very angry demographic in America like nobody else is.
Next time he should probably punch the protester in the face. His numbers will go way up. And if you look at the states he's won, what?
Water.
Well, this is a very emotional crowd today. You guys are very soft and touchy-feely this evening.
I'm calling your mother.
I lived to listen to Hillary scold me. I didn't have to think I listened to you guys. But look, Starnes is right. He had the ACC. He's won Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and now Florida. He swept the southeastern United States, and if polls hold, and he maintains his lead in Illinois and maintains a lead in Missouri, suffering a loss in Ohio, he'll take it. I mean, he's got a big delegate night for Donald Trump tonight.
Yeah. Megan, what do you think of the background there? We're looking at the screen. Trump is getting ready to come out. I mean, you have been
I think that's the best advance so far.
But not better than Hillary's. Better than Hillary's?
But no, it's not better than Hillary's. He should have, I don't understand why he never has a big crowd on these things, too, because he should have a rally. People like the excitement and momentum.
This is more presidential.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. When he had that scare on Saturday, I think that made him realize that he cannot have a 360-degree audience. Like, he really has to be able to confine them, whether he's indoors or outdoors.
I disagree.
And the other thing is that the American flags look more presidential. I mean, that looks like someone who's stepping out onto the dais at the White House, as opposed to someone who's, you know, in a high school cafeteria.
It is more presidential, and he can also vamp and move and then take questions, and it makes all of the media cover the entire event because it's an event. event.
Yeah.
It's freewheeling. Anything can happen.
He's
And when you
actually-
put a bunch of crazy people yelling and screaming, that's not the
Jesse,
image you
but
want to project. Is he's trying to sew up the nomination?
He's waiting longer tonight to talk than he has in the past. I mean, you've seen more candidates go
I think
before
he's waiting
him tonight.
for the
And
polls
other
to
thing is-
close and everything happening, and they call his name.
Yeah,
in North
no, you're absolutely
Carolina.
right. He does do that. He's very measured about when he comes out. But think about what Hillary Clinton needs. Hillary Clinton needs to appear likable. She needs to appear
young.
energetic. And if she has a young, excited, screaming crowd behind her, it accomplishes
Yeah,
that.
Trump doesn't
Donald
have
Trump-
that deficiency, the
No.
energy factor.
He needs
We've got that
to
wrapped
seem
up.
more presidential, and he needs to appear with gravitas.
Listen, it's good on both
which
their,
is
both their
Spanish
sides.
for
I'll give him that.
big hands.
It's smart.
We're going to deport that word when Trump is president.
So he is waiting to come out. This is one of the interesting things. I mean, we see this every time. He's going to pick his time to go out. Nobody wants to get, sort of stomped on by the Trump if he's going to decide to come out while you're speaking and you know that the cameras are going to go and take him. We could do some sort of pool and betting on, how many minutes before he comes out.
Well, the last time I
What is
bet
the
Charles, I
over-under?
lost
18 minutes?
$5, so I'm not betting anything tonight. I'm wondering, we've been talking a lot about Trump and Kasich and Rubio tonight. Cruz was
That's true, you're
poised to
right.
have a
Yeah.
very
We forgot-
big night
we forgot
tonight.
Ted Cruz.
It was supposed to launch into this two-man race
Yeah.
scenario, and so far, if polls hold, there might not be a two-man race scenario if Cruz does not win one state this evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's interesting. Some of our exit polling data, and we were talking about this earlier, the younger vote and getting those younger voters involved.
Yeah.
Cruz was actually doing very well in those states, Illinois, Missouri, and North Carolina.
Surprising.
So he was doing well especially among very conservative voters. So I don't know. It's and of course we have to wait for Cruz to come
Yeah.
out, and that man speaks
But it's-
just an incredibly long
such
time.
We're gonna be gone by then.
But it's such a specific list of ingredients for Cruz because as you're talking about some of these exit polls, he does better with younger voters than Trump. He does better with very conservative voters, which we've also talked about. The closed primaries benefit him. He does well with people who are fiscally responsible, who want to reduce the deficit, and those who want him to handle terrorism. And this is where the big split is. And you're seeing so much enthusiasm for Trump and Sanders on this. People who appreciate free trade are the ones who vote for Ted Cruz. It's not enough people during this cycle, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what does this night mean for him, Jesse?
I think this night for Ted Cruz, if the polls hold, really takes the wind out of this guy's sails. This guy was poised for a two-man race scenario. He needs a victory tonight to sustain momentum. All of the coverage tomorrow is going to be about Rubio dropping out. And Kasich, big surprise,
Yeah,
home
that's
state
right.
guy in
He's the
Ohio.
fourth story.
Decent guy. He is the
Completely
fourth
disagree with
story.
that.
You're absolutely
I
right.
completely disagree with that. And I think if you look at how Cruz
wanna bet?
conducted himself,
got a
sure,
20?
at double your time.
What specifically do you disagree
Look,
with, Todd?
specifically, this idea that this was a bad night for Cruz. I think they were anticipating this. He was pretty much off the radar all week coming into the primaries. So look, I think they're just going to continue on.
So you're saying that they're okay with not winning any states on Super Tuesday?
I think
if
they knew
the
they were
polls
not
hold?
going to win. I think they knew they were not going to win. And again, I think the only
That's
thing
tough.
in question was
they thought
Missouri.
They thought he had a shot in Missouri and Illinois.
I think Illinois,
Yeah.
Missouri, and North Carolina were definitely in play
Illinois is
for
the
Ted
shocker.
Cruz.
But look, I think he goes on, and I think conservatives have a very difficult decision to make in the coming days. Do they rally and do they unite around Ted Cruz? And if not, what do they do?
I agree
there
that
is no
conservatives
option.
will rally
the
around
other
Ted
option?
Cruz to a certain extent, but if you look at the states that are coming up, these are small delegate states. This is Montana, South Dakota, Idaho, Nebraska, states where Ted Cruz could perform well.
Well, he's
but
doing
you
well
also
there.
have
What about
delegate-rich
not just
states like New
conservatives?
Jersey
What about
and New
just-
York.
What about just people who aren't comfortable with the nominee of our party being best friends with Putin? I mean, you're talking about like hardcore conservatives. I'm again the token dirty moderate at every panel. It's fine. And I'm coalescing around Ted Cruz because I see it as my only option to take out Trump. And I know a lot of people that are like me. I host a radio show calling in young people that are, whatever, not hyper religious and conservative, also coalescing around Ted Cruz.
I don't know,
if there's enough people, it remains to be seen.
It's kind of like going to prom with your brother. I mean, at least you have a date.
My expectations are so low. I'm like, disavow the KKK immediately and don't be good friends with Putin. Like that's a two thing I would like to start immediately.
For me, this election is all about the Supreme Court. you know, there's a justice that's going to be appointed, nominated. Who's going to do that? Who do you want doing that? And all these folks that are going, you know, never Trump. Are they willing to put? Are they willing to give that choice to Hillary Clinton?
Well, I think that Hillary Clinton will certainly nominate more liberal justices than President Obama would.
Sure.
I mean, that's a given. And
Absolutely.
by the way, during Hillary Clinton's speech, it came over the wire that President Obama is going to announce his Supreme Court nominee tomorrow.
Right.
So he was kind of turfing her.
Let's say Trump is the president, and if he nominates someone that's distasteful to Republicans in the Senate, they're going to Harriet Miers her. They're going to go back to the drawing board. He'll renominate someone up with better credentials. That's how it's going to work. So instead of trying to like deny Trump the nomination, I think people that are upset might want to coalesce and try to maneuver him in conservative directions as he's in the White House.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So what is the better bet? Because you said there aren't a lot of options on the table right now. When you look at, well, it was going to be a two-man race. Now, if Cruz doesn't win anything tonight, it's not, well, then what are the other options? It's not Kasich. Rubio has dropped out. It feels like it's Trump or nothing. I mean, do you get behind Cruz, or do you try and maneuver
Do you cruise
Trump?
or lose?
Do you cruise or lose? Yeah. Or do you try and maneuver Trump, who said, you know, that he is open to other ideas, negotiating? And we're hearing right now that we're calling Illinois for Donald Trump right now. Fox News is calling Illinois for Donald Trump. After everything that we saw go on in Chicago this week, after everything that has happened in that state, he still took it.
All right, well, how about this? I mean, there are people who say that he somehow engineered those protests to get violent.
Oh, gosh.
Maybe there's something to that. I mean, if it's so effective that it actually galvanizes more support in that state.
I don't believe that Donald Trump is capable of organizing a protest against Donald Trump. I don't think he has the ego to do that to himself. But Todd makes a great point, and I also about if that moved the needle for Mr. Trump in Illinois. But I think the candidates, the way they reacted to that, did them a real disservice with Rubio and Kasich and Cruz saying that Donald Trump is to blame for a bunch of radical
and in doing so,
Black Lives Matter activists charging the stage. I think they really hurt themselves there.
And in doing so, they sided against the front runner with Bernie and Hillary. So you had all of those folks going up against, and it was just a bad optic, and it was a bad move. They just misread the mood of the country right now.
So, what is the answer to the question that we were asking before that?
You know,
about what do you
But I just want to take a little dose of reality, because I feel like I'm the dose of reality here. 25% of Americans consider themselves Republicans. 35% of 25% is what's supporting Donald Trump right now. A general election is an entirely different game.
But it's actually a bigger number than that, because there are a lot of people who don't consider themselves Republicans who are supporting Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's true. And then in the open primaries, those are the states that benefit him. But you know,
But why Romney and my father have continued to lose is because the Hispanic vote goes down by giant margins every election cycle. And if we don't try and reach out to Hispanic voters in some way, and listen, this is a gamble. Are there enough non-minority, non-young voters? I guess will remain to be seen. I still like the idea of reaching out to a larger audience, which we'll see if Donald Trump can backtrack himself enough in a general election to do that.
Okay, I think if you've got a candidate who can put out a very strong economic message that resonates with people, that is simple and convincing, that is so much more important to people than identity politics. At the end of the day, will this make my life, my financial life, better? If you can make that resonate, and honestly, Republicans have done a very bad job of messaging that. But here, interestingly, the race breaks down. It's going to be vastly different now that it's a three-man race on the Republican side. You know, you're going to see either of any of these candidates get higher numbers now, and we will test the ceiling hypothesis for Trump. And now that it's just going to break three ways.
You know, what I find fascinating about all of this is Donald Trump has done an incredible job with the narrative. And, you know, bringing in the family of Kate Steinle to talk about the illegal immigration, talking about, he was the first person and the only person to talk about those jobs in Indiana with the carrier company going south of the border. He was really bringing life to these, to these stories, and people were really resonating with that. Ted Cruz is going to have to start doing that if he has a shot at going up against Trump.
Why does Ted Cruz not use his wife either?
She's very pretty.
So likable, but she's so likable. She's like very strong, independent investment banker. He's another one that I'm like.
Let me tell you what they're going to come after Trump on.
Some People magazine profiles. Come on, show me your family.
This religion business.
Let me fall in love with her.
They're going to come after him on the religion thing. Drudge Report just a couple of days ago, they had the big, apocalyptic headlines. There are 3 or 4, and they were links to Ted Cruz's links to the Pentecostal religion. They're going to go after him, and they're going to try to marginalize him based on his religion. It'll be interesting to see how he has to address those issues, because he's going to have to address them.
So what also may hurt Ted Cruz is his father has a controversial background in his faith.
Wait, what's controversial about the Pentecostal religion?
Well, they're making it.
What do they do over there?
They're
Romney
the
was the
laying on of
nominee.
the hands
He's
and the speaking of
from
tongues.
the Church of
Is that
Latter-day
the snake
Saints.
handlers you're saying? They
No,
speak
they're
in
not
tongues?
the snake handlers. That's a whole different group. But,
So
I
Pentecostal
think there's
people
some
speak in
Pentecostal
tongues?
snake handlers. I think there are.
I don't know enough about.
I don't really
I
know.
have
There are some
interesting- I have a
fringe
snake handling
Pentecostals.
story,
who-
actually, but
I mean,
I'll-
I was a snake handler on.
What is happening? What is happening here?
In college.
Was
in college.
was that a dirty joke?
No, it wasn't at all. No, I dated a
Sweet Lord.
herpetologist.
Wow. Can we swerve back to the election now as we're waiting? Todd, go ahead. Make the point you were
the
going.
point I was trying to make here is they're going to go after Ted Cruz.
Carson was
and
a
they have to be-
Seventh-day Adventist.
Hang on.
Yes, he was. And by the way, Carson had a very good point. He was talking to Newsmax just yesterday, and he said, look, and I'm going to paraphrase here, he said, Trump may very well be a screw-up, but the good news is we've only got him for 4 years, and then we can fix the problem.
That's
so,
not
Wow.
By the way,
Ringing endorsement.
I was paraphrasing, Miss Melissa. But,
I just played that on my radio show. That's almost exactly what he said.
No.
Pretty
He's-
darn close.
That's almost exactly what he said
not even
verbatim,
close.
Melissa. I'm sorry, I got to push back on this. You're right, Todd.
I can actually find it. No, he
Thank you,
said
ma'am.
that.
I'm just saying, that's exactly what he said.
He said he'll probably be a good president and put good people around him. And if he doesn't, then, it's only 4 years.
I know, but saying it's only 4 years.
No,
I mean,
I
that's like
understand that
saying,
was the
we'll
sentiment.
I'll
That's
marry you,
not-
baby, because we
The
can get a
quote-
divorce, maybe.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
crazy.
Exactly right.
I mean, come on. And 4 years can do a lot of damage. Look at Obama in his first 4 years. I mean, come on.
Well, that's funny because when Obama was elected, a lot of people said, the presidency isn't really that powerful. The president doesn't have that much influence over the country. But then you see what a bad president can do to the country, and it's kind of terrifying. I mean, there are a lot of unknown variables here with
What do we think
with
Trump is
your
doing right
hero.
now as he's waiting to go out? Because just telling the audience at home, I mean, we had some guidance early in the evening, and it could be earlier than this. Everybody's gone out and done their speech, except for Ted Cruz, who we forgot about.
I think what he's doing right now, they may be waiting for some signs coming out of Missouri. He may want to lock in a Missouri call before he goes out so he could say he won these 4 states and really put a stamp on tonight. He's probably making some calls in the background. A lot of people congratulating him. I know
think
it's
those stakes are there?
Mar-a-Lago, yeah. So he's got the club champion there, probably giving him a couple slaps on the back.
Paul O'Neill,
He's
Jack
obviously
Nicklaus.
not preparing anything for the speech because he's going to wing it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he's got the family back there, and they're going to bring him out pretty soon. They're playing a little footsie with Cruz. They'll
Did
probably
Ivanka
Bigfoot
have her
Cruz. They're
baby?
going to let Cruz
I don't think so.
speak after him. But this is
One thing I will say is his family is always camera ready, which is important, which the Obamas made that something that's not an option. And it's like they're always ready for a photo shoot.
Do you think that that speaks to his genetic superiority, which is something he's tried to convince voters of? He had his doctor come out and say, this is the healthiest person I've ever treated.
Ever.
I've been treating Donald Trump for 38 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I save his fluids that I may
my
someday
gosh.
study them and find out what it means to be a truly
I
poor
asked
specimen.
Trump when I interviewed him, I said, how do you get any exercise out here when you're running for president? He goes, I give a lot of speeches. I walk a lot. I mean, the guy's not doing any exercise. I don't know if I'd call him the healthiest guy.
Okay. Let's listen to Bill O'Reilly for a second, talking about what the obstacle was that he thinks Marco Rubio couldn't get over. We'll talk about it on the other side. Let's listen.
I was thinking about this all day today. What happened to Rubio? I'm not so sure Rubio did anything wrong. It's that he just couldn't overcome the perception that many Republican voters have that you need somebody from the outside, number one, to punish the Republican establishment, but more importantly, to take it to Hillary Clinton. I think the turning point in this race for Trump was when he attacked both Hillary and Bill Clinton a few months ago when they started the sexist stuff, and he just laid them out. I think a lot of people saw that and said, you know what? This guy can punish as well as win. And in this angry age, voters want a punishment along with a victory.
Interesting. Okay, that's really interesting perspective. And for a lot of people, that has been the frustration, is that you watch Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton do things that would ruin other candidates and other politicians out there, that may even send them to jail, and nothing ever seems to stick to those two. Donald Trump pivoted, and he seemed to get them, and I don't know whether it was really how it was or how he controlled the narrative, he seemed to get them to back away.
Yeah.
And so many people say, well, you know what, I don't like Donald Trump, but I would love to see him in a debate with Hillary Clinton.
It's the one thing
I love. Kill her.
It's the one thing I love that he did, is he called her out on her BS about being a feminist and, you know, the spokesperson for all women everywhere. And I think it really resonated, and it's why she's bleeding young women voters, because our definition of feminism isn't helping your husband sexually abuse women for decades and decades and ruining their lives.
Yeah.
And I thought it was one of the best things he's done.
You know, it actually started an interesting conversation among younger feminists who have a very different version of comportment than, you know, Hillary's generation. And, you know, you could make the argument that they were fighting the good fight many decades ago. And these young women are in a climate where college campuses are considered to be very dangerous, and they have a much lower threshold. And what Bill Clinton did is abhorrent to them. It is totally unacceptable. And when those stories are unearthed to them for the first time, it gives them pause.
I talked to young women who didn't know who Monica Lewinsky was. And if you think about that, because it happened a very long time ago. I mean, it happened in the mid-90s.
Right.
And there's a lot of girls that I don't think even knew these stories. And when you're thinking about it in the era of Bill Cosby, I still think this is a huge vulnerability for them. Carly Fiorina, Donald Trump did it best. I hope he goes after her as hard as possible on every single affair. Their marriage is totally fair game. I know we disagree on this, Melissa, but I think it is totally fair game.
Donald Trump is a high-risk, basically low-risk reward guy. He could either go down swinging and just blow the whole thing up, and everybody will sit here and watch and get the popcorn and lose in a landslide, or he could totally take on the Clintons, mano a mano, punch them right in the face over and over and over again, and win, and then redraw the entire map. So it's high risk, high reward. Either the guy's going to lose in a landslide or he's going to win this thing.
But it's like,
if he starts ripping out Hillary's jugular and showing it to me on a silver platter, that's how he's going to get people like me to turn around.
You're going to change your vote, I think, right now.
No, I'm not changing my vote at this moment, but I hate Hillary Clinton in the same way that Kennedy is. Like, I can't even handle watching her.
You should have seen what you should have seen what Kennedy was saying when Hillary was speaking. We can't even repeat that on the air.
That's true.
Well, but I think a lot of young women feel that way. And again, I think it's something the media has really missed. You're like touting out Gloria Steinem like it's someone that's still relevant to my generation, saying, I'm going to go vote for Bernie Sanders because I need a date. It's so wildly out of touch with what young women are concerned about right now.
Right.
And I think it makes her look older.
And Todd, I mean, back to Bill's point. So Bill O'Reilly's saying that what was it with Marco Rubio? Because even around the table, you know, we've talked about this idea that you have to get the Hispanic vote in the tent, the Republican side, in order to expand the party. And on paper, Marco Rubio looked like a great candidate to do something like that, and failed miserably. I mean, he couldn't get out there and win a state. Why was it that Donald Trump is so much stronger?
Minnesota.
People, when you talk about tapping into that anger, a lot of the anger has to do with not mounting an effective attack against Democrats. He looks like a guy, you may hate him for a lot of things, but who could, as Megan so eloquently said, go jump on Hillary and rip her jugular out.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, this is all about trust, and I just don't think the voters trusted Marco Rubio. And again, I think it goes back to the gang of
So
eight.
not about the attack. You think it's about trust?
Absolutely. I think this is about trust. And again, you're the voter, and you're looking at this guy, judging this person, and judging their character and the content of their character. And all of a sudden, you realize one day he's the choir boy, and the next day he's out there, you know, going after Donald Trump. And then he turns around and reverses himself again.
Yeah.
So folks just didn't know what they were getting with Marco Rubio.
No, it was a very
him.
inconsistent message. It was an inconsistent personal message. And also, like we talked about, what does he do now? What does he do for the next 2 to 4 years? He has to get serious, and he has to figure out who he is, what he believes in, and how he's going to lead. Because although he had some great speeches, he had some wonderful lines throughout his candidacy, we still don't know exactly who he is. and that takes work and discipline and definition.
That wasn't the moment that did it for me, though, is him going. I actually liked it when he went after Donald Trump. I actually thought the hands thing was funny. What did it for me was his appearance at the debate when he malfunctioned.
Oh, the robot.
The robot, because it showed me all the vulnerabilities people said he had. He panics under hard pressure. He gets nervous. He's just going to repeat talking points until the end of time. And I was like, whoa, because I was a big Rubio supporter. And then after that, I was like, whoa, he's everything everybody's been telling me he is, and he's not ready for prime time. And that's what made me jump ship. You're going to say the same answer 3 times in a row? Come on.
Yeah, it's like dating a sociopath. Like, at first, it's really fun because they're charming and they work so hard for your affection. And then all of a sudden,
It's not as cute any longer.
no, when your cat's missing and the scars
But I
start
actually
to
think
show.
that's the moment. I think that
think
more.
that was
Yeah,
the moment
it's
that-
what made me turn.
That data point. See, I think Bill hit the nail on the head. I think it's the anger in America and the idea that nothing seems to stick to the Clintons, and that he is finally the guy, Donald Trump is finally the guy that could go out and actually make it stick, because the genius of what he does all along the way, Donald Trump, is that he comes up, and it's sometimes, it doesn't work for him when he doesn't hit it just right, but he says the thing out loud about the person that you're thinking in your head, that either your filter is telling you not to say or whatever it is,
Right.
and then he sticks it to them, and no matter how hard they try to rub it off, they can't do it.
He's nailed it.
Because
Yeah,
it's dead on.
He's
Because,
right
you
now.
know-
He's
you know
nailed
why?
everybody. It's Lying Ted. It's Little Marco. Who's
Right.
the choke artist?
Yeah.
Who's the sweater? And then with Hillary, not only does the husband have problems, and we'll put him to bed. It was she does not have the strength or the stamina to be president, and that hits on 2 things.
Well,
One, it's a shot at her femininity. She doesn't have the strength. It's a subtle shot there, and her health problems, because she does have health problems, and the stamina. That's an age thing. She doesn't look strong. She doesn't act strong. She coughs.
She's
She
always
has issues,
voice.
and that's Donald Trump saying, in a way, I'm tougher and stronger than this woman.
No, he is, and that perception, absolutely, he's able to change that perception. What they have relied on for decades is decorum. They've relied on other people's manners, like Mitt Romney, like John McCain, to not really go after them, to only go so far because there's been a decency in the discourse.
No, they're afraid of blowback.
They don't
Rand
know
Paul
how
did it
to.
too.
Yeah, they don't know how to anticipate someone like Donald Trump, and I think they're investing so much time now, not only in attorneys to combat the two-sided investigation from the federal judge and the FBI, but also how on earth are they going to take on Donald Trump?
I wrote a column about this week on FoxNews.com, and the idea that the American taxpayers, and I think really the American people in general, are mad as hell, and they're tired of being told to shut up. They're tired of being told that they're xenophobic and that they're racist. They're tired of it, and they're finally willing to stand up and say, you know what? This is a load of crap. We're not going to sit here and be quiet anymore. And if we have to march in the streets, we're going to march in the streets. And I think we saw a little bit of that sort of reveal itself with what happened in Chicago and St. Louis.
She's also a dynasty candidate in a year that everybody hates the dynasty.
Everyone's watching Netflix, and she's Alexis Carrington.
Yes, no one knows what you just said. But and she's funded by Wall Street, and she's been there already. No one wants that anymore. People want fresh, and they're so formulaic, the Clintons. They're running this 90s playbook. When I scream something, the audience claps. It's not going to work.
Obviously, we're seeing Donald Trump come out here in Mar-a-Lago. He's heading up to the stage right now.
Usually he takes an escalator.
That's right. Normally he does have an escalator or just people carrying him. We want to let our audience know that we are going to keep this streaming live on our digital page right now if you want to stay with us. His whole speech, he could go on for a while. Let's listen in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. This was an amazing evening. This was a great evening. They just announced North Carolina. I don't know if they've announced Illinois yet, but we're leading by a lot, so I think they're going to announce it. Florida was so amazing. And I want to thank our friends. Northern Marianas Islands have been so incredible, and we picked up 9 delegates this morning. I heard very early in the morning, 9 delegates, that's a lot. And I just wanted to thank the governor, Ralph Torres, great guy, Chairman Ada, who is a fantastic man, and that was a very nice start to the day, that I can tell you. Many things have been happening over the last short period of time. CNN was very nice. They came up with a poll. The poll said 49% to 14 and 15. We just had one from The Economist, just came out, 53%. And it's sort of interesting because I was watching the news a little while ago, and one of the commentators, who I'm not particularly fond of, but these are minor details, said, but Donald Trump doesn't get over 50%. Because I'm at 43, 45. Actually, now, according to The Economist, I'm at 53. And I have to explain to these people, they don't understand basic physics, basic mathematics, basic whatever you want to call it. When I don't get over 50, we have 4 people, right? We have 4 people. Do you understand that? So when I get 53, and this one, as an example, I had 53, and that's with 4 people. That's an amazing achievement just mathematically when you can get over 50%. So someday they're going to understand. Someday when we take it all, they'll understand, but it is really ridiculous. I want to thank my family, my boy Eric and Don. They've been working so hard. Ivanka and Jared have been amazing. Ivanka's home right now. In about 2 minutes, I'll call, and she's about ready to have a baby, so I don't know. We've been thinking about that now for a little while. But Ivanka has been so helpful, and Jared has been amazing, and it's been just great. I want to thank Barron for putting up with the fact that I never see him anymore. And I want to thank Barron. I never see my Barron, and it's his birthday on Sunday, so we're very happy about that. So it's a little tough, you know, we're going away, and he goes, when are you going to come home, Daddy? When are you coming home? I said, well, in about 2.5 weeks. It's pretty tough. You're traveling all over the place. It's really amazing. Yesterday, I went up to Ohio. I went up to Youngstown. We had an incredible crowd and just amazing people in this country. We have so many great people. We will someday in the not-too-distant future, if I win, otherwise it's not going to happen, I have to be honest with you. But Apple and all of these great companies will be making their product in the United States, not in China, Vietnam, and all of. And we're not going to be losing our companies. You know, our companies are leaving our country rapidly, whether it's Carrier Air Conditioning, whether it's Ford, whether it's Eaton. I was in Cleveland, and Eaton Corp, they're leaving, and so many companies are leaving. And frankly, I'm disgusted with it, and I'm tired of seeing it, and there's no reason for it. It's just gross incompetence at the highest level. We should not allow it to happen. Pfizer, great company, pharmaceutical company, they're going to Ireland, and there's so many more. You have corporate inversions. You have people can't get their money back into the country because the politicians can't get along. They can't make a deal. Everybody agrees, Democrat and Republican. Everybody agrees the money should come back. There's $2.5 trillion outside of this country. Everybody agrees that the money should be here, and the politicians for 3 years haven't been able to make a deal. And we could make a deal. There's an example of something that you could do if I sat down with a few of the senators, a few of the congressmen. You could make a deal on that in 10 minutes if you knew what you're doing, because everybody wants to do it. And companies are actually leaving our country to get their money, not only because our taxes are too high, which we're going to lower, by the way, but companies are leaving our country in order to go and get money that's their money, because there's no way of bringing it in. So we've got a long way to go. But I think at some point it's going to get done. This has been very exciting, this whole process. We started, I was one of 17 people, senators, governors. I've had such great support. Dr. Ben Carson the other day endorsed us. And great guy, wonderful man. And Chris Christie endorsed us. That was so incredible. And today, Pam Bondi came up and endorsed us. She was great, and she is truly wonderful woman, and the job she's done in Florida is incredible. You know, so many. We've had such incredible support. Paul Ryan called me the other day, tremendous call. I spoke with Mitch McConnell today. We had a great conversation. The fact is, we have to bring our party together. We have to bring it together. We have something happening that actually makes the Republican Party probably the biggest political story anywhere in the world. Everybody's writing about it all over Europe, all over the world they're talking about it. Millions of people are coming in to vote. This was an example of it today. Many, many more people. I'm looking at the polling booths. I'm looking at different polling booths all around the country where it's up. And the lines are 4, 5, 6 blocks long. And one woman was in there for 40 years. She's been working the polls. And she said, we'd have 2 people here. We'd have 3 people. Now look at the line. And the line looked like it was, you know, long. It was really long. 5 deep and long. And it's just a different thing. We have a great opportunity. And the people that are voting, our Democrats are coming in, independents are coming in, and very, very importantly, people that never voted before. It's an incredible thing. I want to pay my respects, by the way, to Todd Palin, Sarah's husband. Sarah was here. She was incredible. She was making a speech on my behalf, and fantastic. Everybody loves her. And what happened is he was in a very bad accident. He's tough as nails. He's going to be fine. But I just want to pay my respects, by the way, to Todd and Sarah. So our theme, when we started, and Melania and I came down. Yeah, sit down, everybody, please. I mean, this is Mar-a-Lago. We give you seats. You don't have to stand. I'm looking at all these people. Corey, good job, Corey. Good job. And Hope and our whole squad, right? So when this began, Melania and I said, got to do it. And she was so supportive, and she's been so supportive. It's been amazing. And we have to do it. We came down the escalator, and it was about trade, and it was about borders. And what happened is pretty quickly after that, and we shot right up. I shot right to the top of the polls, and have been leading in the polls almost from the beginning, without fail. We went up in June. Most people said, I'll never run. He's just going to have fun. He's having a good time. This isn't necessarily, I mean, I'm having a good time. I'm having a very nice time. But you know what? I'm working very hard, and there is great anger. Believe me, there is great anger. One of the broadcasters was saying, is there anger? And I said to him, I was supposed to say, no, there's not. We love the way things are working. We love the deal you made with Iran. It's wonderful. You give them $150 billion. We get nothing. We love all the deals. The trade deals are wonderful. You lose $500 billion a year with China. We lose $58 billion a year in terms of imbalance. It's a total imbalance. We don't make good deals anymore. We don't win anymore. As a country, we don't win anymore. And they asked, is there anger from your people? There seemed to be. And I said, there is anger. They're not angry people, but they want to see the country properly run. They want to see borders. They want to see good health care. They want to see things properly taken care of. They want our military rebuilt. Our military is in a very bad state. They want it rebuilt. Very, very importantly, and they want the Second Amendment, by the way, protected and protected strongly. And that's going to happen. And you know what they want so badly? They want our veterans taken care of. Our veterans are treated so badly. So we started, and something happened called Paris. Paris happened, and Paris was a disaster. There've been many disasters, but it was Paris. And then we had a case in Los Angeles where it was in California where the 14 young people were killed, and it just goes on and on and on. And what happened with me is this whole run took on a whole new meaning. Not just borders, not just good trade deals, and we're going to make the best trade deals you've ever seen. We've got such endorsements from Carl Icahn and the smartest people in business, And these people are going to be negotiating our deals, and they're the best in the world. We have the best business people in the world. They're going to know we're going to have such great deals. We're going to do so good with trade. We're going to do so good on the border. But it took on a whole new meaning. And the meaning was very simple. We need protection in our country, and that's going to happen. And all of a sudden, the poll numbers shot up. And I'm just very proud to be a part of this. I think we're going to go and we're going to do a lot of trips over the next month, but I think we're going to have a great victory. And I think more importantly than anything else, we are going to start winning again. This country is going to start winning again. We don't win anymore. We don't win with our military. We can't beat ISIS. We're going to knock the hell out of them. We don't win. We don't win a trade. China, everybody, Japan, Mexico, Vietnam, India, name the country, anybody we do business with beats us. We don't win a trade. We're going to win a trade. We're going to make our country rich again. We're going to make our country great again. And we need the rich in order to make the great, I'm sorry to tell you. So I'm going forward. We had a fantastic evening. I would have never thought this could have happened. I guess we're waiting for one result, which possibly will be very successful also. But to win the states that we won and to win by the margins, and especially, look, this is my second home, Florida. To win by that kind of a number is incredible. It's record-setting. And I have to say it that number one, I want to congratulate Marco Rubio on having run a really tough campaign. He's tough, he's smart, and he's got a great future. He's got a great future. But I have to say, and nobody has ever in the history of politics received the kind of negative advertising that I have. Record. By the way, mostly false. I wouldn't say 100%, but about 90%. Mostly false, vicious, horrible. They say it was 18 million the first week, meaning last week, and 25 million. It added up to over $40 million. And you explain it to me because I can't. My numbers went up. I don't understand it. Nobody understands it. My numbers went up. I mean, it's been an interesting experience. Last week, Adam Scott won at Trump National Doral, won the big tournament, the World Championship of Golf. And Adam, who's a great guy, I guess a lot of you folks saw that, but I'm watching, and we have television screens all over, and we're down at this gorgeous green at Doral, and everything's working beautifully, and then a commercial comes on, the worst commercial, and I'm with these wonderful people from Cadillac and all these top executives, and I'm saying, look over there, look, don't watch it, you don't want to watch it. I'm saying, isn't the grass beautiful? Look, don't watch. And they came in waves, one after another, and it was brutal. And then Adam comes and is this handsome kid from Australia, one of the greatest golfers in the world, made an unbelievable shot on the 18th hole to win the tournament. He's a great champion, and we're giving him the award. And just before we break for a commercial, we'll be right back with our great champion from Australia, Adam Scott. And here's the commercial. And I said, no. And it was two of them. Oh, what a day that was. What a disaster. What a disaster. So again, I just want to congratulate everybody. This is a really interesting process. It's an amazing process. It's very tough, but it is by the end, if you get to the end, you can handle a lot of things, including pressure. That I can tell you, because there's nothing like it. Lies, deceit, viciousness, disgusting reporters, horrible people. Sure. Some are nice. Some are nice. Some really disgusting people back there, I have to tell you. And I just want to say we're going to go forward and we're going to win. But more importantly, we're going to win for the country. We're going to win, 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 and we're not stopping. We're going to have great victories for our country. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.